All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the state. I must say that I'm so excited to be here today and, of course, working with the right team, and we're in a good spirit, I must emphasize. But, guys, let me just dive straight to the topic at that point, because they said for all the we can, or I can, or we will, and I will, they all depend on our ability to do so. So much so that, or much as we hope to make a change for women and the world at large, everything remains dependent on our health and our ability to do so. The health of we women, particularly our mental health, is a top priority at any time. Again, I say welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener and, of course, the chief host of this platform, Kike Atanda-Owo. Yes, I think it's important for us to quickly hear what On This Day in History segment asks for us. When I return, I give my opinion, my own personal perspective on the issue. And stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. Sometimes when we gaze into history, it's not always about mountains we move in the past, but it could be about one single thing that we did right and the world will just follow suit or follow its lead. And I must say that, you know, what my takeaway most of the time on This Day in History segments about what will history remember us for. So legacies are not always about a large story. They are about the things that we did right, and I want to use this medium, you know, to celebrate Simon Ola Sukomi Ojoye, you know, for what he did for civil service in Ebonyi State. And I think that, you know, throw spotlight on men like this, he for she, like they say, you know, and all of that. And I want to say that, you know, may God continue to strengthen the men like this when it comes to the civil work that they do. It's important for us to get a quick message from my sponsors, and when I return, we'll go straight to the topic at hand. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, in Nigeria, women have been reported to be under higher rates of mental health issues amidst society or societal pressures and economic burdens, and limited access to mental health care due to lack of resources and high costs have been underlining issues for many women today, especially in this side of town, Nigeria. And this International Women's Month, I'm shining a light on mental health for our Nigerian women today. And of course, the struggles of mothers during pregnancy, during childbirth, and motherhood, and career pressure as well in terms of multitasking the career path, and of course, maintaining the home front is something that is impacting both on our well-being negatively and at large or at great length, you know. And on this live show today, the founder of the Women's International, and of course I must say that I'm a member of this community, you know, and I'm going to now be more active with this community because the founder is somebody that I must share with you that our experiences and our strategies for, you know, raising awareness and improving mental health support for women in Nigeria is something that we must applaud her for. And the discussion with her today will shed light on paramount need to address mental health challenges facing women in Nigeria. And my guest, you know, Chinny Okoye, will also share CWI's mission to empower women, and what and will also highlighting the prevalence of material, let's say, yes, material, maternal mental health issues in the country, and challenges as such as limited in terms of resources, in terms of cultural stigma, will be discussed today, along with strategies to improve access to care and reduce stigma is also what I'm bringing to forward. The conversation will emphasize on the importance of the holistic support for women's mental well-being. You do not want to miss this if you're a woman, you're a girl, you're a lady, you're a woman, you're a grandma, great grandma. You do not want to miss it, because this is for us. You know what? Let's check the profile of my guest, and when I come back, we'll dive straight to the topic at hand. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, welcome to the live show, Chinny Okoye. It's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike today, and a pleasure to be with you on the same platform. Should I start the show by saying happy birthday again? I wish you the very best as you start the new year. And of course, you know, I wish you sparkling of health as well, and more wealth and more wisdom. Let's start from there. How are you doing today?
I am good, thank you. Thank you for having me here on your show. Amazing show as well, thank you.
But before we dive into the mental health and well-being, let's quickly address the theme of this year, 2024, when it comes to International Women's Day, in terms of inspire inclusion. You know, you were on the UNICAF webinar, which I hosted, and you spoke brilliantly on the issue at hand and the educational aspect that affects women, so to speak. What progress should we be having by this time next year with regards to Nigerian women and inclusion into decision-making positions where women should be striving to be leadership positions, so to speak?
I think that, you know, when you see the statistics and of women, you know, in politics, women making, you know, decisions, you can tell that there's still a gap that needs to be addressed. I'm hoping really that by next year, you know, with all of the events that have happened in this Women's Month, you know, inspiring inclusion, I'm hoping that, you know, these organizations, you know, these businesses that have come up with these events addressing this theme for this International Women's Day are actually going to implement on the issues that they've come up with, on the solutions that they've come up with. Hopefully by next year, we can see more women driving, you know, leadership roles, more women making decisions, because it's important for us as women to have more women, you know, in that seat, to have women in that sector making these decisions for us, because I believe that really it's only women that can actually understand what other women are going through, and it's only these women that can make these sorts of decisions. So I really do hope that more women would come out, right, and be available to make a difference, to make an impact, to change the policies affecting women today. I hope that, you know, companies and organizations and the political arena would be more inclusive for women as well, because when we look at it, the statistics is quite low. there still are many women who are not in that space, and we need more of them. So I'm really hoping that the government can be open to that sort of thing. You know, that we're not living in the old ages anymore. This is now the new times. And I think that we need to understand that women are basically the rock of our nation. And more if more women are in politics, if more women are in that, decision making arena, there will be a big difference in our economy, in our community at large, really, in Nigeria.
Many thanks for that insight, but listening to you and going through your profile, because in your own experience, I must ask you, what are some of the biggest barriers that you think women in Nigeria face in terms of prioritizing their mental health? That's my first question to you. And my second question to you, because I think that, as we forge ahead, there will be loads and loads of, banter between us in terms of shedding light on issues that affect women at large. How can we effectively rise, or will I say, raise awareness about the importance of mental health, particularly amongst women in our rural communities today?
Absolutely. So, I believe that, in Nigeria, being a woman comes with a unique set of challenges. And when you throw in social economic factors, it becomes even more daunting. So picture this: economic constraints make it tough to access healthcare, pursue education, or even start a business. On top of that, cultural expectations weigh heavily. There's this unspoken pressure to balance traditional roles while also aspiring for modern opportunities. It's like walking a tightrope with no safety net and resources. Let's not forget the limited resources, from healthcare facilities to educational opportunities. It's like fighting an uphill battle every step of the way. So imagine being a Nigerian woman, dealing with all of this. It's not just about facing one hurdle. It's like being in an obstacle course where the hurdles keep multiplying. And then what happens when you're constantly navigating this maze of challenges, right? Mental health takes a hit, sorry. So it's depression, anxiety, stress, you name it. They become all too common. It's not just about feeling sad. It's about the weight of expectations, the struggle to make ends meet, and the fear of failing or falling through the cracks. That's why we need to shine a light on this issue with mental health and mental well-being. It's not just about recognizing the problem, really. It's about taking action. We need to address the root causes, tackle economic inequality, for example, challenge harmful cultural norms, and ensure that every woman has access to the support and resources she needs to thrive, whether it's mentally, even emotionally, physically, financially. It's about creating a society where being a woman isn't synonymous with struggle, because that's the usual instance, right? But rather with strength and opportunity. So that's really what I would say. I think that even with the women in the low income communities, these are things that they face even worse off than we do. And I'm hoping that, with more platforms like mine, the Women International, who are, challenging the status quo, who are trying to assist women to be, better versions of themselves, and who are trying to assist women going through these sorts of issues, that will be able to, build a system where women in Nigeria, not just in low income communities, but everywhere, are able to access, the resources they need to help them with their mental well-being and their mental health.
All right, many thanks for that submission right there. But to be frank with ourselves, we keep it real on this platform. Majority of those watching us right now will be like, what are we saying when eating and surviving is the most crucial thing in an economy like ours today? So generally speaking, because when I was thinking about this topic at hand, I kept on thinking about the debate in our country today. Only a few elites, prioritize their mental health. Even only a few will say that they are going to, to the hospital to even do checkups, so to speak. How are we still fighting that narrative when it comes to mental health in our environment where we have placed religion above, certain important issues like this?
I think really it's about having more discussions on these issues, right? Um, it's not being discussed enough. And this is one of the reasons why we started Women International in the first place, right? We realized that there was a gap in this space. If you if a woman says to someone, I'm stressed. For example, when I say to my mom, I'm depressed, she says, how can you be depressed? You need to pray and everything will be fine. Which obviously, for us Christians, yes, it is possible to pray and, put everything in the hands of God, right? But we also need to realize that there's still an issue there. There's still the issue of your mental health, your mental well-being that needs to be taken care of. Women need to sit back and understand that they need to put themselves first, because as women, we carry a lot of things. We're wearing a lot of hats as mothers, as wives, as sisters, as businesswomen, as professionals. We're carrying so much, doing so much at one time, and so we tend to forget that there's our mental health that needs to be in check, and we cannot pour from an empty glass. So it's important for us to, not just as not just as women who already know about mental health, but also just as women who understand the big issue, what the big issue is. There's people who are dying from this issue. There's people who are committing suicide from this issue. And it's important that we address this, and important that we have these conversations, and more, organizations like the Women International are there to support women going through this issue, because it's a real issue that needs to be addressed.
All right, many thanks again for that elaborate submission. But before we go on a break, let me ask you this, because we have this notion and it is detrimental to one from a thinking perspective. We think that when women have a fantastic career, so to speak, or she's successful, she can't have mental issues like depression and all sorts. People just believe that your life is balanced, your life is perfect. Take for example the banker lady who committed suicide in Ikorodu a few months back, and the lady that worked with Glow at the time that killed herself in her home in Lekki. How do we reconcile with that when it comes to mental health?
Well, the truth is that, like I always keep saying to people, like, it doesn't matter what, space you're in, whether you're a successful woman or not, where every woman goes through the same thing, right? And like I just said now, it doesn't matter that we know that we need to address the situation and take our mental health seriously. There's real issues. Women are facing so many things in life, and you just never know when it comes and where it's coming from. So you can see a successful woman today and believe that she has everything under control, but it's one of those things where you have to be intentional, very intentional about it, and say to yourself, I need to. And I mean, even with successful women as well, there's so much they're doing, obviously, and that's one of the reasons why they're successful in the first place. And a lot of times, you have to understand that they are that mental well-being. There's something lacking, right? Because they're so focused on other things like being successful and making money, right? And so they forget that they actually need to also take care of themselves first, right? And so I think that it's important that women, kind of like take a sit back and say to themselves, what can I do to ensure that my mental health is in check?
I hear you, and I'm more concerned about us having enough mental health practitioners. With what you've shared earlier, I just feel that there was a recent statistics that I stumbled on before coming on the show that says that about 250 qualified psychiatrists are working in a country of more than 200 million people, whereas the standard practice is for psychiatric doctor to take care of 10,000 patients. What campaigns, with all your work thus far, what campaigns are ongoing to encourage people into this area of medicine, or will I say medical, when it comes to the challenges that we're facing with mental health today and the number of psychiatrists that are out there?
I mean, it's really just like you said, in terms of the problem really being a religious issue, right? Is that, most Nigerians, may think that it's not something that they should delve into as medical professionals. I actually recently just got introduced to a doctor who's a psychiatrist, and I was trying to go through some therapy, because I believe that whether or not you're going through any issue, it's just always nice to have a therapist at hand. And I was able to discuss with him, and from the first conversation, I knew that it just wasn't going to work, right? So even the issue is not even just about having more psychiatrists. I think the issue is about having the right sort of psychiatrist, having people that are that really understand what it is to be able to go through the issue at hand, which is the mental health issue, right? I think that if, for example, we make more noise about it, we have more campaigns about it, letting people know that this is an issue that women, hundreds, thousands of women are facing.
All right, fantastic. Let's go on a quick break, and when I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about mental health, and specifically for women. I specifically chose this topic, to support the women folks. And I must say many thanks to, Chinny Okoye for all that she have shared thus far in terms of throwing light on the issues that affect Nigeria as a whole, or Nigerian women in particular as a whole. But again, for those who are listening to me right now, watching me, remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 080-988-77400, showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, both on Real Talk with Kike platform, and of course on Silverbird platform. And again, Chinny, many thanks for all that you've shared thus far. Let's so beyond this traditional therapy, the religious angle to how we view issues, what other alternative approach can be used to support, women's mental well-being in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, I think that TWI is basically in the verge of trying to do that. Through our safe spaces, we've introduced circles, something that we call a circle. And a circle is basically a circle of women coming together, whether it's online or physically. And I think that that's actually one of the ways that you can tackle this, mental, I like to call it mental well-being, not mental health, because, especially in Nigeria, when you say mental health is already a bad omen. People are running away from that. Oh no, I'm not, I don't have a mental health. I'm not crazy. I'm not mad, when really that's actually not what it is. So I like to call it mental well-being, and it's actually an easier way to get people to sort of like have more conversations when it actually use the word well-being rather than mental health, because it makes you seem like you're crazy in Nigeria, even if that obviously that's not the case. But to answer your question, I think that with what we're doing, like I said, with TWI, having these circles, having these conversations, bringing women together to have these conversations, and just sharing experiences about what they are going through, whether it's mentally, whatever it is that they're going through. I think that it's a way to sort of like tackle the issue, and for women to understand that, as they're hearing other people talk and hearing other people sharing the experiences of, what they've been through, whether it's from being stressed out or from having, being depressed or, whatever it is, other women hearing, women talking about this can allow them to understand that they're not alone, and that this is a conversation that can be had, and that this is a real life issue, and it's not their fault, and it's not a problem. It's just, human. It's just part of human nature, right? Mental well-being is part of human nature.
that I have to interrupt your line of thought, because listening to you right now, what is coming to mind is if you can share some success stories from TWI's work in terms of empowering women to address these mental challenges. There must be success stories that you can, that you can use to emphasize on the issue at hand.
Well, I'll give a quick example. um, this was a few years ago anyway, and we've had many cases like that. But I want to talk about this particular one because this was one of the first issues that I faced from obviously founding the Women International and starting these circles that I've explained to you. We had a lady who sent me a message, a text message. I'm not sure how she got my number anyway, but obviously being a founder of such a platform, obviously it's very likely that anybody can get your number in any way. But she sent me a message saying that she was basically about to kill herself, and no one was listening to her. Her parents weren't listening to her. Her husband wasn't listening to her, and she was going to commit suicide basically. I only was able to see that message the next morning, and I remember thinking to myself, what is this? What am I going to do about the situation? I mean, I'm not a therapist. That's number one. Yes, I've been on a platform like this, and we're opening to, we're open to listening to women, talk about their issues, and then, if it's something that we can't address, then we introduce them or link them up with, the right therapist or a life coach or a psychiatrist, and so that's what we do. We're almost kind of like a middleman, right? So imagine me getting this text message from a lady and thinking to myself, how am I going to help this woman? And I hope she hasn't done anything to herself, because obviously she had sent that message the night before and it was now morning, right? So, this is me being my emotional self and, even in tears, crying already, not knowing if the woman had already committed suicide and thinking it was my fault for not answering immediately. So I called the number that had sent me this message, and a lady answered, and it was her. So I, kind of like took a deep breath, and like, good, she's alive. That's number one. And so I asked her, what the problem was. And, she just, gave me a breakdown of really what the problem was. And she just kept talking for maybe like 30 minutes, maybe more than 30 minutes, actually, probably up to an hour. And I was just there to listen. I didn't really say much, to be honest. I was just, agreeing with some of the things that she was saying and just, reiterating some of the things she was saying. And, it was a very emotional moment. Sometimes, she would cry and, it was very emotional. And at that point, I realized that all she needed was just someone to basically talk to. That's all she needed. She just needed someone to listen to her. And it's funny because right after that day, that conversation, she immediately told me that she felt better, and then decided that she was going to also start a platform. I can't obviously give you the name of this platform, because then that would be giving you the name of the lady. But she also started her own platform that was, dealing with, the focus was on mental health and mental well-being, and the issues that Nigerian women are facing today, with mental well-being. Until today, she's still, going on, and, she's made it a success and has helped thousands of women with their mental health. So those are, one of the ways that we'll be able to help people. Another thing I would say is, for example, when we do get, messages like this, through our helplines or our one-to-one counseling support, sessions, we find that, all we need to do is just kind of like have a conversation with the woman. And most of the time they feel better. But then if they don't, then we can introduce them to therapists, like I said. So we're like, we're the middleman basically, and we introduce them to people that we feel can help them to sort out, whatever the issue is.
Many thanks again for that elaborate submission. But listening to you, I must ask, what role can men and families play in creating a more supportive environment for women's mental health? And the reason why I'm asking this, because the home front, the foundation is quite important to your health, but sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we live in an environment where people do not actually want to share their challenges, their problems, because they don't want stigmatization. Like you said earlier, when people hear mental health, they just think, oh, is she crazy, for lack of a better word, and all of that, And also sometimes you find spouses or families who are narcissists. Pardon me, I try to keep it real on this platform. When they know that you have challenges like that, and they tend to use it, to manipulate you. What advice do you have for people like that in terms of how they can manage such people around them, and of course looking for the better support system that they can rely on?
I mean, obviously, it's a tough one, especially when it comes to marriages. I think that a lot of women are going through that in their marriages, and it's really tough. It's really tough to be able to help a woman that is already in a marriage where, the man, like you said, is a narcissist, and a lot of, I think right now it seems to be that more women are having these mental well-being conversations, and I don't think that men are having enough conversations about this. I mean we do have a lot of platforms and organizations focused on, empowering women, right? I don't think that we have enough doing that for men. Men need to have more conversations, um, open conversations about these issues. And that's the problem. The problem is that we have more conversations within women and not within men, whereas men actually have really really bad mental well-being issues. Um, but in the case of, people, relationships and marriages, it's a tough one, but I definitely would say that women would need to, I guess it's a communication thing, talking to the person and hoping that they can understand where you're coming from. A lot of times, you'd hear women actually say to you, I've said this to my husband. I've told him I'm depressed. I've told him I'm stressed. I've told him I'm having a breakdown, and they kind of like brush it off, like, get over it, man up, that sort of thing. They don't take it seriously, and that's the problem. And they hear that the woman has committed suicide, or even the child as well has committed suicide, because people are not taking it seriously. So really, the bottom line with all of this is to have more conversations, not just within us women, but even men as well, having these conversations, this real conversation, because mental well-being is a serious issue that affects not just your personal life, but your professional life. So as a society, you know, as a society, we need to understand that this is something that probably needs to be in our curriculums, for example. Talking about these issues, having courses on mental health, and how to handle it, and how to get the support that you need. There needs to be more courses on that. There needs to be more events and, summits, or, conferences, you know, you know, focusing on that issue, and it needs to become household, almost like a household name, actually, so that people know that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and it's not just something that came from outside of Nigeria, something that is foreign. It needs to be something that is natural to us, so that we can address it effectively.
It effectively, I think that no matter how much we want to address this thing effectively, Chinny, we must address it with resources, because considering the limited resources, how can we advocate for increased government funding and support for mental health services in Nigeria? However you go in, I don't know if you have the support of any government parastatals, in terms of partnership or collaboration, because no matter the kind of support we want to give to these women, these vulnerable women, so to speak, it must be resource bound. How do we move forward with this?
And obviously that's one of the biggest issues that we're facing as a platform as well with Women International, because we can do as much as we can do, but if we don't have the access to these resources, so for example funding, to be able to assist these women, um um then it becomes an issue. So like I said, I think really, again, and I think I'll keep reiterating this, the bottom line is having more conversations about this. If you don't have the conversations, if we don't have more platforms, focusing on having these conversations, um we will not get anywhere, right? um the people that need to hear about this will not hear about it. The people that are, the change makers, you know that need to hear about this. The decision maker is not being had. So how can you change something when the conversation is not even being had in the first place? So we need to, what we need to do in firstly is to, like I said, make it something that is normal and not something that is foreign, right? It needs to become a normal thing, a normal this discussion, a normal conversation, that people actually have these issues, and that it's not. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you're mad. It's just part of human nature, right? And once we start having these conversations, I believe that the right people who are meant to get involved to be able to disseminate the resources that we need, it will happen. So there is a process to this. The conversations need to be had first, like this. So you've now used your platform to have this sort of conversation. TWI uses its platform to have these sort of conversations. We need more discussions like this.
All right, many thanks. Talking about resources or funding, I must touch on the technology. Digital have come to stay today. What role can technology play in making mental health resources more accessible to women in Nigeria, especially in the rural area? That's my first question to you. And my second question is that the reason why I'm asking this question is because I feel that how can we bridge that information gap regarding the quality of mental health services available in Nigeria today?
In terms of technology, I think that, I mean, obviously that's the way to go, right? For us to be able to get access to, women globally, and like you said, in low income communities as well. It would be nice to, maybe, for example, with TWI, we're actually trying to start an app. We're creating an app that basically pretty much focuses on your mental health, right? I don't know if you've heard about this. There's actually an app like that. I think it's called Sleep, or I'm not sure what it's called now. I can't remember the name of the app, but there's an app like that that basically has 24/7 therapists, psychologists, life coaches that are there to support women when they need it, right? So in that app, that platform basically would allow you to, just mention that you're having an issue. It's almost kind of like a call, for example, a helpline, where you just have to say, I'm having an issue, and somebody basically reaches out to you and they try to solve your problem. So it would be nice to have that sort of thing, something that is accessible, something that is user friendly, and then something that can work outside of internet access, because of course people in low income communities, for example, don't have access to internet. So it'd be nice to have something that can be used, an app that can be used, or a platform that can be used offline, where people can address these issues, and solutions are being made, are being addressed immediately.
Again for that insight right there. This will be my last question to you before we move to the last segment of the show, which is about me asking, what message of hope and empowerment would you like to share with our audience today regarding mental health in Nigeria, or women in Nigeria as a whole, knowing that we live in a country of hope? What's your message for people listening to you right now?
I think, for women, please stay true to yourself. Continue to be as authentic as possible. Continue to have these conversations. And if you can't access these conversations in your community, create the platform to have these conversations. And it's actually quite easy to do. Just start it. Just start it. Invite women to come and have these conversations. Invite women to come and create a safe space to support women going through mental health. And I want to say to women that you are not alone. You are not alone, and you've never been alone. There are platforms just like the Women International here to support you, here to encourage you, here to show you that you are cared for, here to show you that you are loved, and that you are enough, that you are absolutely enough. So I want women and girls to understand this. You are not alone, and you will never be alone.
Many thanks, Chinny Okoye, for all that you've shared thus far. It's been an interesting time with you on Real Talk with Kike today. But before I let you go, there's the last segment of the show that I call Trending Stories. These are stories that affect us all as Nigerians, and the first trending story that caught my attention, this is where I have an opinion, is the Nigerians abroad are forced to do jobs despite not taking the job at home. And this was said by the First Lady of Nigeria, and I want to say many thanks to Madam Tinubu, the First Lady of Nigeria, for telling us the truth that we already know. I'm sure she does know that everyone knows that if our country were better, or no one will go out there to say they want to do odd job in foreign lands, and it is not a matter of pride or self-arrogance. The man or woman who leaves this country are sometimes, looking to do that because of their future and the vision of their children. It is never about them today. So I saw something online recently that stipulated about in 1975, a G-Wagon, a wagon car cost about 1,700, and now in 2024 that same figure will only buy us a loaf of bread. That's the sad reality of where we are today. So no one saw the inflation from where it was last year to where it is today. So the commodities, literally went by 300%, or President hasn't even said a good story about us that things will get better. And in our country, I stand to be corrected. Anything that goes up never comes down. I believe and I'm optimistic, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't say the reality just as it is. So it is easy for us to, or easy for those high above to say that these people who traveled outside the country take menial jobs and all of that, they don't have alternative. Their children have option, and the poor man doesn't have that alternative that the people high up there have. So I'm asking in pain, how do we move forward? I think that one of the biggest job on our hands with this administration is to start making our people believe and make them see an optimistic future, because many have lost it. We live in a country where, like I said earlier when I was asking Chinny Okoye, that we live in a country where we have hope. Hope is what keeps people going. If you don't believe in something, how can that thing even be successful sometimes when you think that you have a vision? They can sample all sorts of opinions of people in the street and say whatever they're saying or whatever. The only way that they can do what they are doing right now is in terms of accountability. How accountable are leaders today? They should, keep coming with an open mind or open dialogue, so to speak, in how to better the country that we are in today. So, and second is the fact that I just feel that they need to increase a level playing field, for every one of us, because as it is right now, a son of nobody without a godfather becoming somebody is really slim. Yes, because people who believe and stay in this country, are the people who believe that, they have some godfather somewhere, or they think that this country will be great again somehow, somewhere. I don't know. But unfortunately, I just feel that, while I understand the perspective where our First Lady is coming from, I believe that we need to put things in perspective to try to give people hope, to try to make sure, not just hope, but let them see, the other vision where they are hoping that things will get better and they can just live a basic fruitful life in this country. They are not asking for too much. They are just asking for basic amenities. How can the government provide that for the commoners on the streets, not to talk of the very lower Chinny, let me come to you. I try to tailor my thoughts properly before I say what I'm not expected to say. What's your take on this?
Obviously, you're passionate about it, and I think that a lot of us feel the same way as well. Kike, honestly, it's I also moved to England when I got married in 2019. I went to have my baby, and we decided to stay after the COVID-19. But obviously, I'm one of the 1%, and I say it very lightly, one of the 1% that has the opportunity to say, I can stay, abroad, or I can come back home if I want to and still, find a way to flourish But even now, even for, people in that category, things are hard. Life is tough in Nigeria. To be honest, life has always been tough in Nigeria. But like you said, people in Nigeria just have hope. They have hope. It's just very unfortunate what's happening in this country. And yes, I mean, I did see quite a number of people, even when I was in school in America as well. Like I saw a number of people that I knew, just I knew they weren't happy with what they were doing, right? But I knew that they didn't have a choice because Nigeria has basically caused this. It is as simple as that. You know, that Nigeria hasn't allowed us to have a conducive environment for us to want to stay. So, for example, when they're saying that doctors shouldn't go to, go abroad or Japan, it's like, why? When really and truly, they would probably thrive and do better there than in Nigeria. Because, first of all, they are underpaid. They are
There's no
greatly
value for
underpaid.
money. There's
And
no value
a
for
lot of
money.
people, no, absolutely no value at all for money, you know. And so this is the reason why people are leaving the country. It's as simple as that. So it's easy to say, people shouldn't leave and people should stay, but how? This is an issue for everyone, not just people in low income communities or people who don't have. It's also for people who have as well. People are going through stuff in Nigeria. Every single thing right now is expensive. So how are we meant to move forward?
Meant to move forward. Many thanks, Chinny, for your submission right there. Let me quickly touch on the second trending. I hope you have time to be able to touch on is the fact that the federal government temporarily bans public funded foreign trips for ministers and others. And according to Punch, this morning when I stumbled on it, President Tinubu Shettima spent 91 days abroad in 7 months, according to Guardian in 2022 rather, a conservative estimate that puts medical tourism at an average of 2.5 billion, that's 1.4 trillion naira a year. I'm asking, really, to push back on the prodigal spending, Reps is walking the ropes of an act that prescribed a jail term of 7 years, if you ask me, or a fine of 500 million for officials who spend public funds on foreign medical trips. So when we put these figures or statistics, together, we see some interesting and wasteful dimension of our resources and materials. Our wealth in this country being, I don't know. I'm trying to just tailor my thoughts, guys. Help me, because this has been long overdue, if you ask me. I feel that Nigeria has been on a borrowed money for almost 2 decades now, since Obasanjo's era. I would say did brilliant things in his tenure, like bringing our debt ratio low and of the Paris debt at the time. But the administration that came in afterwards now see it as a lifestyle to keep borrowing and keep being indebted to whatever. What sort of indebted man live like a free man in a country like this? It even goes against the natural law of life, if you ask me. No one looks at a debtor with a good face. Now, we need to cut down on unwanted expenses. I don't know how much I can emphasize on this because of time. Whoever wants to serve Nigeria or believes in Nigeria, let them use their own money to exhibit selflessness for their own country. These perks and embellishment that they enjoy when their wives and family makes them too comfortable, I feel that that's the reason why everybody wants to be a politician today, because of all the perks. I'm not eating at public officers, I start to be corrected, but the people are becoming more economic and management savvy, and that is making all these questions that we are putting on the table today in terms of our spending. One good thing about the turnaround directive from the president is the succumbing to pressure in the media, both social and mass media. When the people cry out and criticize, they react by adjusting And that's what we are seeing right now. And I want to use this medium to say many thanks to Mr. President for doing the right thing in the right circumstances with the economy, with where the economy is at the moment. Unfortunately, Chinny, I cannot get your submission on this. We have to go right now. But I want to say thank you so much for lending your voice, you know, on issues that affects women, women folks at large. You know, it's been an interesting time. Courtesy you, our resourceful guest, Chinny Okoye. Many thanks. I wish you the very best as you continue to forge ahead and start a new year with a year of fulfillment on all fronts for you. My name remains Kike Atanda-Owo. Bye now.